Progress.
Hello, everyone. Good afternoon, and welcome to our weekly media briefing and public health update with Montgomery County Executive Marc Elrich. I'm Lorna Virgili, Hispanic Public Information Officer, and joining us today is Mr. Sean O'Donnell, who's Assistant Chief of Public Health Services for the Department of Health and Human Services. Our special guest this afternoon is Mr. Anthony Featherstone, who is the Executive Director for WorkSource Montgomery. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. Mr. County Executive, the floor is yours. Good afternoon.
Thank you, everybody, for being here. And this week marks 1 year since the start of Donald Trump's second term. I said then that his return to the White House would not change how we govern Montgomery County, and that remains true. But he's certainly erecting as many obstacles to governing as he can. But there's no denying that the decisions coming out of Washington over the last year have had real and damaging consequences here at home. What we've seen over the past 12 months follows a clear pattern: incompetence, corruption, and cruelty. And Montgomery County is experiencing all of these. We watched unqualified people placed in charge of critical federal agencies, the destruction of NIH, the corruption of FDA, all these things happening in real time here. We've seen chaos created by reckless decisions, watchdogs removed, public office treated like a personal business venture, and we've seen cruelty aimed directly at federal workers, immigrants, working families, and people struggling to stay housed, fed, and healthy. Here in Montgomery County, those impacts aren't abstract. In just the first few months of this administration, we experienced more federal job losses than we saw in the previous 2 years combined. Thousands of residents who dedicated their careers to public service are suddenly out of work, without warning and without stability. Immigrant families began living with daily fear, and we have not even seen the worst of it. If anybody thinks that we're being spared what's happening in Minneapolis and other cities, this is just a matter of him not having enough staff to do it all across the country. But as they continue to staff up and hire people with these $50,000 signing bonuses, who are hiring people who basically have no skills and no business being put in the position they're going to be put in, we are going to see a ramp up, and we're going to experience it. It's going to be more difficult. Our mental health providers, our supportive housing programs, and our homeless shelters have faced uncertainty just as the need increased. And during the longest federal shutdown in the nation's history, families who rely on SNAP benefits were left waiting while food banks struggled to keep up. And had not some judges delayed implementation of some of the administration's most damaging actions, the impact on the county, people of the county, would be far worse than it already is. Those choices tell you a lot about priorities, his priorities. Human beings aren't a priority. Health isn't a priority. Peace in the world and stable relationships apparently is not a priority. It is really disturbing to be working at this at a time when you have a president who's so uncooperative and so intent on doing damage. At the same time, we've also seen something else over the past year that matters. What we've been able to continually build on is strong partnerships and competent, values-driven government, and seeing what we can do as well as our partners can do, even in the face of federal disruption. When federal workers were laid off, Montgomery County didn't wait. We partnered with Governor Moore's administration, our congressional delegation, our county council, WorkSource Montgomery, and community partners to respond quickly and decisively. Together, we launched Mobilize Montgomery and opened the Federal Workforce Career Center, creating a coordinated one-stop response for displaced federal workers. The scale of federal job losses in our state and region is becoming clear. As you can see from this chart, at the end of November, Montgomery County's unemployment rate currently stands at 4.5%. As you can see from the chart on your screen, that's up from 2.5% in January. We had done a remarkable job of recovering from COVID. We had unemployment rates that were lower than they've been in the last 20 years, and Donald Trump has destroyed all that. So he's successfully put people out of work. I guess that was his agenda because that's one thing he's doing really well. Federal government employment fell steeply in 2025, as you can see in this other chart. The three lines are District of Columbia at the top, Virginia in the middle, and Montgomery County at the bottom. You can see the respective drops in different jurisdictions. Apparently, Virginia's been hit about as hard as we have. And we see our federal employment down to 138,000. Washington Post released a chart illustrating the job losses, and since last January, Maryland has experienced the largest impact, with 24,900 federal employees losing their jobs in 2025. That represents 15% of the state's federal workforce. I'll remind everybody, so nobody gets too comfortable, that when they do agree on a budget bill, when we get beyond the continuing resolutions, the administration intends to extend the layoffs, or actually not layoffs, the firings. They're only stuck right now because of the continuing resolution has the other budget continuing into this year. As soon as they're freed from that, the world's going to become different again, and not in a good way. We're absorbing more federal losses than anywhere else in the country, and yet we continue to diversify our economies and add jobs in bio-life sciences and even manufacturing to offset these job losses. But there's no way we can offset the losses as fast as they're happening. We can't fool ourselves either. Many of the federal employees and contractors are in specialized positions, such as scientists, researchers, and policy area experts, positions that are hard to find in the market economy right now. So that is not it's not as simple as you lost a federal job, you'll get a civilian job. Those jobs largely aren't there. Last year, my administration, in partnership with the council, passed a $700,000 supplement to WorkSource Montgomery to create Federal Workforce Career Center. Since opening in October, the Federal Workforce Career Center served over 1,100 former federal workers and contractors. That's why I'd like to welcome WorkSource Montgomery's Executive Director, Anthony Featherstone, to share an update on these efforts. So, Anthony, the floor is yours.
Yes, thank you, Mr. County Executive. So, Anthony Featherstone, and I have the pleasure of serving as the Executive Director for WorkSource Montgomery and our local Workforce Development Board. Our mission is pretty simple in explanation. We try to help our talent, our residents connect to opportunity, and try to help opportunity, which our local businesses connect to talent. As the County Executive mentioned, with the uptick from 2.5 to 4.5% unemployment, with also the state reporting 25,000 job losses among the federal workforce in Maryland, and we know that Montgomery County takes the brunt of these losses. We're really proud that our county leadership came together early in 2025 to form Mobilize Montgomery and to talk about what type of supports were or would be needed for federal workers and contractors who would be navigating the job market unexpectedly. So in October 2025, as mentioned, we did open the first Federal Workforce Career Center, a one-stop shop for employment and training needs for federal workers and federal contractors to pretty much let federal workers know and show them that they are supported by our county as a whole if they need any level of assistance in finding their next opportunity. And we're really proud that, through the first three months that we've been able to serve 1,100 individuals, over 1,100 individuals. Many of these have enrolled in skills training or certification training programs, professional development opportunities, have embarked on, entrepreneurial pathways, and have received job placement assistance to find their next opportunity. And so there's a wide array of services that are offered. Those are just a few, but in addition to that, we know that there's a level of basic need that needs to be met when it comes to being unemployed and navigating the job market. And so we do have Maryland Department of Labor staff and the FWCC, the Federal Workforce Career Center, to provide on-site unemployment insurance support if you have questions about your claim or actually want to file a claim with support from a UI professional. We have wraparound supports that are available. We're working with local partners like Manna Food Center to provide food security services or support, with Every Mind to provide mental health support. If you are looking to turn your skills into a business, into an entrepreneurship endeavor, we're working with the Black Collective to offer cohorts for entrepreneurial coaching and training, as well as one-on-one coaching and support to start your business. And so these services, along with helping you translate your federal skills to how they will be marketable in the private sector, resume development, doing a lot of interview preparation, and I think most importantly, providing referrals for employment opportunities are just a few among the many services that we're offering in the Federal Workforce Career Center. But everything starts with a simple question on how can we help you find your next opportunity, and through that we're able to kind of delve into your skill set, develop some targets for employment opportunities, and help support you along that journey. There's a lot more that's on the horizon when it comes to workshops or when it comes to hiring events. We do have a large hiring event coming up on March 25th, and a lot of smaller scale events happening between now and then. We encourage everybody to check out our website at www.worksourcemontgomery.com or mobilize-montgomery.com to find out about what's happening at the Federal Workforce Career Center or with any of our partners that will provide support for federal workers and contractors trying to find your next opportunity. And if you need support, as I mentioned on the front end, if you don't know how your skills translate, or you want to sit down with somebody to help figure out your employment journey, we're here to support you. Our county is here to support you. You can walk into our job center at 11510 Georgia Avenue in Wheaton. You can go to one of the websites I just mentioned or give us a call. But we want to make sure that you know that we're here to support you in your employment journey. So, Mr. County Executive, thank you for the opportunity to share updates, and I will hand it back to you.
Thank you for everything you've done over at WorkSource. It's really made a difference, and your leadership, I think, has been the key factor in that. You've been able to do remarkable things, so thank you very much. I'm going to turn my attention now to everybody's favorite topic, data centers. They've been in the news a lot recently. And, you want to take questions now, Lorna?
Yes, let's see if we can take some questions here. We have a couple members of the media joining us today here live. Members of the media, please raise your hands if you have any questions for Mr. Featherstone, Executive Director Featherstone. No questions? Okay, Anthony, you can remain on the call if you like to, but if you need to depart, feel free to do so. And my apologies, Mr. County Executive, for that interruption. Go ahead, you may continue.
It's not a problem. My apologies for not remembering to stop there. Like I said, data centers have been in the news a lot recently and a topic of a lot of conversations. They're a big topic in Maryland right now. In an effort to help shape the conversation around government policy, my staff and I have compiled a list of recommendations that are based on best practices, research, and many, many conversations. We've sent these recommendations to the County Council, also all of our members of our delegation in Annapolis, as well as the relevant department heads of the Maryland state government, and to many of the stakeholders in the county, including industry, utilities, civic associations, and environmental advocates. And we've asked for their comments. We wanted to give them advance warning so they have a chance to mull over what we've been looking at already, and hopefully be able to add to what we've put down there if they've got other ideas that make sense here. On Tuesday, February 3rd, I'm holding a public meeting to hear from people in the county. The meeting's going to be at 7 p.m. at the Leggett Executive Office Building, and there will be an online option. I've offered these recommendations to help guide the development of local legislation as policy as the council begins its deliberations. And we need to go farther than the outline in the original bill. There's a lot of aspects to this. It's very complicated, and we really want to get this right. Obviously, there are financial benefits from doing data centers, but there are real problems related to the grid and the stress it puts on the grid and the stress it's putting on electric supplies. So how we handle this is going to be really important for the future of Montgomery County and for the state, both economically and environmentally. So there's a lot at risk and a lot at stake here, but there are benefits that we can reap if we do this right. It's been 7 years in other fun news since we had more than 10 inches of snow, and forecasts are showing the potential for a significant snowstorm this weekend. And some models are predicting up to 18 inches. I prefer the one on my phone that's at 8 to 12, but 18 That's a nice number. This is really expensive. I mean, the saying around the county is that every inch of snow costs $1 million. So this is really not a good thing. Much as I like snow, I can't like it anymore because it costs too much. But this looks like a pretty significant storm. And looking at the storm map, this is a storm that's stretching from New Mexico up to the East Coast. That is a very large storm, not something we usually have. Our emergency management and transportation and public safety teams are already preparing for a worst case scenario. Up-to-date information will be available at montgomerycountymd.gov/snow. And residents can sign up for real-time alerts at alert.montgomerycountymd.gov. So please take time to prepare, check on your neighbors, especially seniors, stock up on essentials because you probably won't be driving out from the eggs you forgot to stock up on. And make sure you have emergency kits already. County facilities such as libraries, recreation centers, and senior centers remain available as warming locations during normal business hours. Another note, this week we have an important community event happening in the county. It's our annual point in time count. The Metropolitan Washington Council of Governments will conduct its annual point in time homeless count on Wednesday, January 28th. This work informs funding decisions, service planning, and long-term housing strategies. Last fall, we pushed back against federal proposal that would have dismantled permanent supportive housing. They're still trying to do this, but this is in court. One of the most effective tools we have to reduce homelessness. In the president's proposal, the county would have lost $7.5 million, would have put 500 families, 800 people on the street. That is an enormous hit. It would be a big hit on the county to have to backfill the federal money. His objection is that if you're helping people, you're making them dependent, and that, by gosh, if you just cut off their food and housing, they would go out and get jobs and be like everybody else. Folks who work with people who are homeless know that they're often dealing with both physical health and mental health issues, or the lack of skills that means they can't get a job that pays enough money to pay the rent. So there are a lot of reasons why people are homeless, and I'm sure most of them would prefer otherwise. But the president thinks that by basically threatening them with starvation and total homelessness, somehow things are going to change for the better. I don't see that happen. Nobody else sees that happening either. I want to thank the state's attorney general and regional partners for their advocacy that was able to stop the proposal, at least for now. Now we need volunteers, especially in Up County, to help with the overnight count beginning at 8:30 p.m. at Bower Park in Gaithersburg. Volunteers can register at montgomerycountymd.gov/homelessness. Before we open it up to questions, I'd like to give my staff an opportunity to provide any updates they want to share. And we'll start with our health team.
Thank you, Mr. County Executive. Just to remind folks, we are still monitoring our respiratory diseases, and we have seen our flu cases begin to come down a little bit. Our hospitals are still very, very busy with flu patients. We are also seeing, as is much of the country, a gentle rise in COVID cases, and we are still in RSV season. So we still have all three of the major respiratory diseases impacting folks. Please take precautions, especially when you're around vulnerable populations. Also, it's not too late to get your flu or COVID or RSV shot. They protect not only for this season, but if we see these or similar variants in the future. So that is all the updates we have from Public Health today.
Thank you, Mr. O'Donnell and Mr. County Executive. Okay, members of the media, we now are going to open the questions and answers portion of this presentation. Any questions related to open topics? I see Ms. Huckabee from Bethesda today. Good afternoon. Welcome.
Good afternoon. I just wanted to go back to the possibility of snow. The county executive mentioned that the departments of transportation and emergency management are preparing for the worst case scenario. Could you just talk a little bit more about what those preparations look like?
Well, given the size of the storm, which is atypical, I think there's going to be a lot of discussion about where to stage things and how early to stage things. You know, you don't want to be hit by the snowstorm and then figure out where you're going to move your equipment. We may be involved in pre-staging things, so we're minimizing the movement of equipment across the county. We're going to be looking at what our resources are for shelter, if we have to provide housing for people in, you know, the county buildings, if people lose power and are unable to keep their houses heated, then we, you know, no doubt be called upon to provide support for that. I think just generally it's making sure that everybody who's got a job is going to be prepared to do it, and that they're going to be able to in an anticipatory way put themselves in a position to deal with. This is different than an overnight snow where we typically sit around wondering, A, is it actually going to snow? Then when it does snow, is it going to snow and then rain right after it? Or is this going to be, you know, just a few inches? We're talking about 12 to 18 inches or 8 to 18 inches. Both ends of that range are really problematic for transportation in the county. So we're trying to get ourselves in a position to handle this as efficiently as possible.
Thank you.
Thank you. Members of the media, any additional questions this afternoon? No more questions for the county executive? Well, thank you everyone for joining us. Have a great afternoon. Stay safe, and we'll see you next time.
Take care.